So we turn now to Prothromplex, which was the Factor 9 product. Serological Products Limited applied for a product license for Prothromplex on the 20th of December 1972, SHPL 40197_078. And it was stated that it was manufactured in Austria and would be imported into the United Kingdom. The warning was given in similar terms to those that we've seen before, and I quote, "Despite the precautions taken in the selection of donors, the risk of transmission of homologous serum hepatitis cannot be entirely excluded." That is SHPL 40197_092. At the same time, there was an application for a clinical trial certificate for Prothromplex for its use in a particular purpose. That's SHPL 40665_019. So two applications, product license and clinical trial certificate. The application was successful and a license was issued in August 1973. One document that falls between the two periods, which is of interest, is at SHPL 40665_142. If we get that on screen, please, Sonic. A letter or a fax sent from Mr. Berry to Dr. Eibel on the 17th of March 1973, and in relation to bebulin, which I understand to be an immunoglobulin, and Prothromplex. It says, "The Committee of Safety of Medicines ask that we test the final product for the absence of HAA, which is hepatitis-associated antigen. So as well as testing the donors, you test the final product as well." And if we look at point 7, the committee sees the justification of some risk of hepatitis in treating a haemophiliac who would otherwise die from hemorrhage. So we can see the risk-benefit analysis as reported by Mr. Berry as having been considered. The license, as I say, was issued on the 14th of August 1973, SHPL 40197_078, and the clinical trial certificate was also issued on the same date, SHPL 40665_019. The formal license was issued on the 10th of December 1973, SHPL 40197_004. So the same process again, but a letter of intent to issue a license stands as the license. It is sometimes said or thought so that the United Kingdom was practically self-sufficient in Factor 9, but we can see from Prothromplex that the product was used in the United Kingdom for the treatment of patients who required Factor 9. If we look at BAYP 5022_069, this is a document. We don't know the hospital from which this comes, but for reasons I'll explain, we suspect it comes from a Scottish hospital. And it comes from a Department of Haematology and Blood Transfusion, and it gives totals of products used in 1975. We can see the Factor 8 there lists cryoprecipitate, hemophil, cryobulin, and Edinburgh concentrate, PFC, which is why we suspect it is probably, given that it's in 1975, probably a Scottish hospital. And if we go down, we can see Factor 9. Sorry, just go up a little there. So, Nick, thank you. So the Factor 9 totals. By far the most used product is Edinburgh Defix, provided by the Protein Fractionation Centre, 408,600 units. But Prothromplex, stated as being from Immuno in Vienna, is 30,000 international units. So we can see that the product is being used. And indeed, if we look at OXUH 40212_002, so OXUH 40212_002. Thanks. Vis-a-vis annual returns of 1978, as collected by the UK haemophilia centres, and collected in particular by the Oxford Centre. If we look at page 3, please, Cernick, we can see that Profromplex is listed as one of the materials used for haemophilia A patients with factor VIII antibodies. So for antibody patients, 12,000 units of Profromplex have been used. If we could go to page 5, please, Cernick. While we are on this document, and because we will be coming to it later, we can see at the same time for FEBA, this is for factor VIII antibody patients, 1.928 million units of FEBA used at this time, and we'll come back to that in due course. The Profromplex product license was renewed on the 17th of August 1978, SHPL 40377. And in September 1981, we have a letter from Mr. Berry which states that Immuno AG, quotes, only have permission to use European plasma for Profromplex. That is SHPL 40271_040. So only European plasma at that time, 1981. If we could have on screen, please, DHSC 302229_055. This is the same document that we looked at earlier. So this is the DHSS document collating the information that was provided in response to Dr. Walford's questionnaire of the manufacturers. If we go to page 2, please, Cernick. This is dated the 28th of June 1983. And if we look at the set heading for Immuno, we can see annual sales for Profromplex of 0.8 million international units. And it is stated to be for factor 9, although this is a table which doesn't go into a great detail. It may also have been being used for factor VIII inhibitor patients. Interestingly, in this table, it is stated that Profromplex is made from European or US plasma. Now, we don't know the basis for why that is said. It's something that we will continue to investigate. But you will have seen from the previous reference, September 1981, the understanding was that there was permission only to use European plasma. It could be a mistake on the table, we don't know, but that is something that we will continue to examine. Again, I note FEBA there, 1.5 million international units provided in 1983 on an annual basis. By November 1984, Immuno were preparing to submit a variation for Profromplex license, which was for a dry heated product, heated at 10 hours at 80 degrees. So this was what was known as the TIM4, the method 4 dry heated product. The references are SHPL 40168_020, same stem _022, and SHPL 5068_070. It's not entirely clear when the variation was submitted. It was being prepared in November 84. We don't quite know when it was submitted, but we do have a note from the 5th of March 1985 to say that the application had been rejected. The reference is SHPL 5048_000, 026. We looked earlier, sir, at some of the documentation about the urgency with which heat-treated products were being approved at that time in terms of factor VIII. But despite being the application taking place in exactly the same period, the Pro-Fromplex application was refused, and one of the reasons given was the need for, and I quote, clinical proof that heat treating does not cause thrombogenicity. So this is a recurrent concern with heat-treated factor IX products, that by treating those products in order to try to inactivate HIV, you may be increasing the risk of causing blood clots as a result of the nature of the protein changing in the heat treatment process. So that is one of the reasons why this application was unsuccessful. Even though that application was unsuccessful, there is evidence that Pro-Fromplex TIM4, the dry-heated TIM4 product, was nonetheless available in the United Kingdom, presumably on a named patient basis. This is SHPL, could we have this on screen please, Sir Nick? SHPL 5067_054. We have a fax from Mr. Nicholson of Immuno Limited to Immuno AG, 21st of December 1984, particularly to Mrs. Dierenhofer of the licensing department. It says, thank you for your combined efforts in getting new heat-treated packaging done for Cryobulin, Phoeba and Pro-Fromplex. Our initial stocks have not arrived. And it says, we were slightly concerned that the PL and PA numbers, so that's product license and product application numbers, appeared on Cryobulin TIM2 and product license number on the Pro-Fromplex TIM4, as both these are still unlicensed products. We will probably have to send a letter with each consignment so that customers do not believe the products are already licensed. Evidence, sir, that the unlicensed product is still being provided within the UK at that time, and that there has been a mix-up in the labelling of that product. A further document may assist, sir, PRSE 302530.
Just pause there for a moment. If the named patient basis was the only basis for supply, then it seems rather odd that there's a consignment, references to consignment, and that customers don't believe the products are already licensed, because by definition, if it's for a named patient, that's what they will have been applied for by the clinician, and they know perfectly well that it's not licensed, which is why they're asking for a named patient basis supply.
But that's correct, sir. There is a possibility that the concern would be that the customer knew that a license had been applied for, and that if they receive a box which has got the license number on it, they would understandably assume that the license had been granted. So it may be that that was Mr. Nicholson's concern, and that was why he was intending to send the letter.
Yes, so the product they wanted, they were getting, but this was a bit of information which just needed to be right.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. If we could have a further document up, PRSE 302530, tab 102. Now, this is a document which is dated the 11th of March 1985, and the opening paragraph informs doctors, and it's a Dear Doctor letter, that the product license for heat-treated cryobulin had been granted. And then, so if we could go back to the full, thank you, Senik. It then goes on to discuss some other aspects of the cryobulin element. And it goes on to say, as you may know, we have held a product license for our factor IX concentrate, Pro-Fromplex, for over 11 years. But at the present time, our standard product is no longer available within the UK. We are in the process of seeking an amendment to our license to supply heat-treated Profromplex Tim4. But until this has been approved, we can only supply this on a doctor-named-patient basis. And then it goes back to cryobuline. I draw this to your attention, sir, for your consideration about the prohibition, as we have discussed, on advertising and making representations about a product. We make no submission on that now, but it is a matter that you may wish to consider. But what this does show is that the non-heat treated Profromplex was no longer available in the UK, but Profromplex Tim4 could be supplied on a doctor named patient basis, even though it was not unlicensed, even though it was not licensed. A little context for that letter comes from a fax sent from Immuno Limited to Immuno AG the following day. That letter was dated the 11th of March 1985. This fax is the 12th of March 1985. Cernic, it's SHPL 5048_029. If we go down to the second paragraph, the first paragraph concerns a different form of heat treatment, which I won't trouble everybody with now. It says, as we predicted, hospitals are now changing over to heat-treated factor 9 as there is no health service product available. There is a market for at least 12 million units, and our competitors are already taking this business with their competitive prices. I appreciate your problems with prices in other countries, but we cannot understand why this does not seem to bother all the other blood product companies, Alpha, Travenol, Cutter, Armour, who also sell in Europe. We could do well with a Profromplex Tim2 if we can move quickly, and the price looks very interesting. That is a reference to the other form of heat-treated product, which, as far as I understand, was not made available in the UK. But the previous paragraph is the context to which I wished to draw your attention. On the 4th of April 1985, the previous correspondence coming from the previous month, Immuno AG informed Immuno Limited that they shouldn't take any further action on license variations for Profromplex because there was an expectation that they would soon receive some additional data about viral inactivation against HDLV3. That's SHPL 5048_025. So as of April 1985, no license, and stop seeking to make any variations to the license until we have this new data. SHPL 5048_024, please, Cernic. th of April 1985. Mr. Berry faxing Immuno AG saying, we need further evidence that antiviral treatment of Profromplex and fever does not cause thrombogenicity. We are selling substantial quantities of both products, and if you will advise us on what tests will clarify the situation, we can arrange to have these done. So substantial products of Profromplex being sold, presumably on a named patient basis, at a time when there had been an instruction not to take any further action on the license. Cernic, if we could have on screen, please, SHPL 5066_001. It's page 80. 80, yes. Thank you. This is the same document that we saw earlier, which provides an overview of when products were available in the UK and the nature of those products. And we can see for Profromplex that there was a licensed non-heat treated version available until December 1984. And that's when the non-heat treated ceased to be available. Then Profromplex Tim4 dry heated unlicensed from December 1984 to November 1985. So at the time that we are talking about here in these letters, it seems to be the dry-heated TIM-4, which is being provided on an unlicensed basis. Profromplex Steam 2, January 1986 to September 1986, on an unlicensed basis. Forgive me, I said earlier that I didn't think that was provided, but it clearly was. And Profromplex Team 4, steam treated, January 1987 to the date of the letter, which is November 1989. And although it is not stated in the letter, as we will see from the documents, that product too was unlicensed. So the last licensed variant of Profromplex in the UK was sold in December 1984. If we could just leave that up for a moment. The Profromplex product license was renewed on the 13th of September 1985, SHPL 40377. Again, that was given retrospective effect. So this is for the non-heat treated product, but the license remains so that they can apply for variations to it. The TIM-4 steam treated, which was introduced in January 1987, that was heated at 1 hour, for 1 hour at 80 degrees and for 10 hours at 60 degrees. And it was increasingly to that product that Immuno sought to change the license. If we could, yes, we can take that down now, please, Sonic, thank you. There was another variation application submitted on the 23rd of December 1986, MHRA 0033320_033, but that was withdrawn on the 8th of September 1987, SHPL 40106_220. The non-heat treated license was renewed on the 21st of February 1989, SHPL 40377. Even though the product wasn't being sold, it is still there to allow for the variation applications to be made. Mr. Nicholson commented that he was rather surprised that that license was renewed. The reference to that is SHPL 40175_009. There was a further application to vary the Profromplex license in September 1990, SHPL 40311_039, and this was the steam-treated TIM-4 variant. The CSM, Committee on the Safety of Medicines, considered that application and concluded that they were unable to advise the grant of the variation on grounds of safety and quality. They provided several reasons, including the view that, quotes, in view of a potential for hepatitis transmission by the product, the risk-benefit ratio was inappropriate. The reference is MHRA 0034575_060.
Is there any documentation about, which we have from the licensing authority itself, about the renewal of licenses for non-heat treated product in the mid-80s and again in 89, 84 and 89?
There is
85 and 89.
We can check to try to find further detail.
I mean, it's on the face of it, it looks a little, looks as it might require further investigation, because it could well be that these are products which, not being heat treated, may not have viruses in them inactivated.
Yes, sir. I think we will investigate it further. A possible answer is the advantage to a company of maintaining that license, even if they're not selling the product, is that the license is then there and they can apply to variant.
This isn't a question really about the advantage to the company.
Yes.
It's a question about the reason for the licensing authority giving a license. Why would you give a license to a company for an unheat-treated product if, at the time, the only products which were supposed to be distributed, at least for factor 8 and probably for factor 9, were those which had been heat-treated?
I don't want to preempt the evidence that may be given later.
But that's the subject of
Yes.
inactivation. There may well be some reason for it, and I just am wondering if you knew it at this point.
I don't have any firm evidence. What may have been in their minds, and we can see it from the Cunliffe report, is that it is easier for the licensing authority to consider an abridged product license when the license is already there, and then you look at the steam treating method or the dry heat treating method and see if it is sufficient to allow the license to be granted. It might be that it is more efficient, quicker to do that than to get rid of a license and start again from scratch. The licenses can be dependent upon an undertaking that a product is not actually being sold at that time. And so there may be an understanding that is why. But that is something that we have to look into, sir. But there is no evidence that I have seen that any of these untreated products were actually being imported and used in the UK at that time.
No, well, I follow that. It's just rather curious.
Yes.
And I suppose it fits in with the licensing regime because the licensing authority can take into account matters other than the three principal ones. Well, I'll wait to hear in due course.
There are certainly, as we've seen, there are one or two eyebrows raised in the correspondence from people within Immuno Limited saying they were surprised that they had been, the license renewal had been approved. I won't go through all of the correspondence, but there is a similar pattern for Profromplex as there was for Cryobulin, that an increasing acceptance from Immuno Limited that there wasn't going to be an acceptance of their steam-treated methods by the licensing authority. And by the early 90s, there is an acceptance that they're going to give up these licenses, and as we've heard, and I've cited the references before, the licenses for both Profromplex and Cryobulin were cancelled on the 14th of April 1992. One point which is perhaps worth making at this stage is that although a license wasn't granted for the TIM4 steam or vapour heated product, there is some evidence that it subsequently came to be considered, by some at least, as one of the more effective heat treating methods at that time. We have an email from Dr. Peter Foster, who has given evidence both to Lindsay and to Penrose. He was sometime head of research and development at the PFC in Edinburgh. If we could have on screen, please, Cernic, MACK 0002301 _022. Now, in this email, Dr. Foster is responding to a question that has been asked of him, seemingly about which products were considered to be safer as time went on. What Dr. Foster says is this, and this is dated the 11th of January 2000. Perhaps we need to begin by defining which products we now regard as being hepatitis C safe. According to recognised international experts, Minucci and Horowitz, these would have been A, solvent detergent treated, B, 80 degrees centigrade dry heated, C, pasteurised at 60 degrees centigrade for 10 hours, and D, vapor heated brackets Immuno final version TIM4. And he cites Horowitz and Minucci. The two articles are PRSE 302445, that's the Horowitz article cited there, and the Minucci article is DHSC 0038508_045. Dr. Foster goes on to say, solvent detergent products did not have marketing approval in the UK prior to 1989 at the earliest. Pasteurised factor 8 from Germany was not generally available because of the very low yield / small quantities exported. I have a copy of Behringwerk's export figures for this period, which prove the point. The earlier Immuno vapor heated TIM2 and TIM3 products did transmit hepatitis. Precisely when the TIM4 version became available in the UK is unclear, possibly around 1986 to 1987. Therefore, apart from 8Y, that was the product produced by BPL, the only hepatitis C safe factor 8 likely to have been available in England and Wales prior to 1989 would have been Immuno's TIM4 product. It is difficult to imagine that this would have accounted for all the imported factor 8 used at this time. Now, I pause there, sir, to make a couple of observations on this, and these are made in no way critically of Dr. Foster. The TIM4 product that was available in the UK, so far as we can tell from the papers, was the factor 9 product, Profromplex, not the factor 8 product, Cryobuline. The date from which it is available, and we've seen it from the documents we've looked at, was sometime around January 1987, which ties in there with what Dr. Foster was saying. The further point that I make about this is that the fact that in 2000 one can look back and say that this was a hepatitis safe product does not mean that the licensing authority somehow got it wrong at the time. They were working with different data and were responding to the application that they had in front of them. I will just cite a couple of other articles just by reference to their URNs. IPSN 40156_093, which is an article from Professor Minucci and others from the British Journal of Haematology in 1988, volume 68, pages 427 to 430. And that includes a study of the TIM3 product, which found that 4 of the 28 previously untreated patients in Italy who were given that product developed hepatitis B. And we have seen in the documents references to the licensing authority being concerned about the transmission of hepatitis B, and that may be where those concerns came from. However, the findings of that study were challenged by Immuno. Two references, SHPL 40174_002 and SHPL 40106_099. The scientists, including scientists from Immuno, questioned the way in which the Minucci trial had been conducted and about the findings of hepatitis B that were associated with the TIM3 product. And as of April 1991, Immuno's position was that the Italian study, Minucci study, couldn't be said to be, quotes, an appropriate, couldn't be said to be, quotes, appropriate to document the virus safety of cryobuline. So they were contesting that study. And I've already given a reference to a subsequent study by Professor Minucci, which primarily concerned the TIM4 product, but also refers back to his earlier work. That, sir, is all I'd say about Profromplex. I turn now to FIBA, which is the factor 8 inhibitor bypassing fraction, which is what FIBA stood for The reason I couldn't remember what VA stood for was because VA doesn't seem to stand for anything. But it's factor VIII inhibitor bypassing fraction. So a product that was primarily intended to assist those who needed factor VIII but had developed inhibitors.
I think it may stand for agent.
It may, yes, sir. We know from a letter dated the 12th of August 1975 that there was notification to doctors of a new product called Fraction R, and that's an early name for fever. That's at CBLA 308057. And that's the first reference that we have been able to find to fever in the UK market, so that's 1975. A 1976 report on the clinical application of fever detailed how it had been administered to 52 patients in 17 European haemophilia centres, including the Manchester Royal Infirmary. That's SHPL 5086_031. And so we can see from that by 1976 it was certainly being used in trials in the UK. Immuno applied for a product licence for fever on the 30th of March 1977, SHPL 5086_011. That application was considered by the Committee on the Safety of Medicines, and a provisional decision was communicated on the 9th of August 1977, in which the CSM indicated that they may be unable to recommend the product be granted a licence as the application was, and I quote, inadequate to judge the product on safety, quality and efficacy. So that's SHPL 5085_114. So it is not saying that it wasn't safe and efficacious and of acceptable quality, but they had inadequate material to judge whether it met those criteria. Immuno met with representatives of the licensing authority in September 1977, and they were told at that time, or it was hinted at that time, that they would succeed with an application for a clinical trial certificate, but they would need to provide more information if they wanted a full product license. And that reference is SHPL 5085_111. So the licensing authority also saying that they wanted convincing trial reports concerning efficacy. They need more information if they're going to give a license. Even though FEBA remained unlicensed, it was used widely within the UK. If we could have, please, Sir Nick, OXUH 40212_002. The annual returns for 1978, which we've seen before, and if we could go on, please, to page 3. There we can see 1.928 million units of FEBA in 1978, an unlicensed product. SHPL 5085_095, please, Sir Nick. This is a fax dated the 18th of June 1980, sent from Mr. Berry of Immuno Limited to Immuno AG, and it says this: in view of the long discussion I've had with our medical advisor, and due to the fact that Professor Bloom has written to us as follows, and it says, he quotes Professor Bloom saying, I'm completely revising my treatment schedules for our patients with inhibitors, and in the immediate future, our first line of attack for high responders will be with FEBA. At least this is the only material that has given a significant positive controlled clinical trial. And what Mr. Berry says in light of that is, and I quote, I intend applying for a full product license for FEBA. So he's going to apply for that license. The date is June 1980. The application wasn't made until September 1981. The reference for that is SHPL 5091_005. Further reference is SHPL 40209, which is to part 4 of the application, which summarises clinical data and includes a note that in 9 cases for transmission of hepatitis as a result of fever treatment could not be excluded. The Committee on the Safety of Medicines considered the application in February 1982. The assessment prepared by the Subcommittee on Biologicals noted that the product had been available on a named patient basis for 6 years. And it said this, quotes, "Nearly 1 million units were used in the NHS in the last complete year for which records are available. And the total use over the last 6 years is 14.5 million units." That's DHSC 0105547_002. The same assessment, which was prepared for the Subcommittee on Biologicals, gave the view that there was evidence of efficacy of fever, but while it was quite extensive, it was largely anecdotal and uncontrolled, meaning no control experiment was run alongside the trial that was being done. The CSM main committee advised that they were unable to recommend that a product licence be granted on grounds related to quality and efficacy. In particular, they noted that adequate evidence of efficacy in relation to several claims should be provided, in addition to complete data of the manufacturing process and on product labelling. That is DHSC 0105547_002. Immuno were informed of the CSM's decision by letter on the 19th of March 1982, SHPL 5093_018. On the 26th of October 1982, Immuno wrote to the CSM providing additional information, and that included the fact that the United States had issued a product license for fever, and that had been done on the 24th of September 1982. And we can see from the other documents I've cited that the product by this time was also licensed in Brazil, Denmark, West Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. The same letter of the 26th of October 1982 said that Immuno weren't going to advise the use of fever for patients with factor 9 and 9A inhibitors anymore, just factor 8. It's SHPL 40104_037. Further written representations were made to the DHSS on the 1st of June 1983, SHPL 5093_009, and that included a copy of a data sheet that warned that despite precautions taken in the selection of donors and the testing of donations, it is impossible to exclude transmission of viral hepatitis. The further submissions were considered by the Committee on the Safety of Medicine on the 21st of July 1983, and their conclusion was that they were still unable to advise that a licence be granted on the grounds of efficacy and quality, and that was communicated to Immuno on the 5th of September 1983, SHPL 40104_026. If we could have on screen, please, Sonic, SHPL 5085_037. This is a letter from Mr. Berry to Immuno AG, informing them of the rejection of the license. The first 2 paragraphs of that letter says, "We have now been informed that the Committee of Safety of Medicines are unable on the grounds of efficacy and quality to recommend the licensing authority to issue a product license for fever, you will notice that they have not included quotes on the grounds of safety, so we will not be prevented from continuing to sell on a doctor/named patient basis. That is dated the 27th of September 1983. I pause there to note, sir, that other licenses, notably for Proflomplex, were rejected on the grounds of safety. And from the documents we have seen, I've seen no suggestion that they ceased to be sold on a named patient basis because of that.
Is there anything in the Act which would lead to that conclusion?
Not as far as I'm aware.
So the only barrier might be, assuming there's no other statute that might preclude the sale, might be the duty of a doctor to take reasonable care for his patient, the law of negligence, in effect. And if something's not known, or ought to be known as not reasonably safe, not using it.
Yes. The other option that was available to the licensing authority, as we saw from the way that the named patient secondary legislation developed, was that by 1984, or by 1985, there was a process by which the licensing authority had a period, I forget now if it was 28 or 35 days, but they had a period in which they could say that they were not prepared to allow the
But this predates that, doesn't it?
This is September 1983. Yes, it does. But that would have been governed by the previous order, which meant that they, at least the licensing authority, had to be notified, and they could have taken action thereafter once they were notified.
Under what head? You can come back to me on that.
I will come back to you on that, but I think it may have involved the use of stop orders, but we will come back on that. On the 29th of October 1984, so stepping forward a year, Mr. Berry informed the Medicines Commission that he intended to make representations and have a hearing about the fever application, SHPL 40104_017. So this is the appeals process that the Act allowed for. As part of I've written down 29th of October 1984. I suspect that actually should be 29th of October 1983. So, Nick, can we have SHPL 40104_017, please? No, sorry. So this is the letter is from the 29th of October 1984. This refers to the point at which Immuno had, as it were, got their ducks in a row in order to make the application to the Medicines Commission, because earlier correspondence from earlier in the year shows that among the work that they did is they enlisted Dr. Preston to act as a party to present the case to the Medicines Commission. They also involved a number of haemophilia centre directors in a trial for fever, which seems to have been a retrospective trial to show how the product had operated. And all of this was presented as evidence to the Medicines Commission in order to try to get the licence. The references are SPHL 40101_045, _046, _024, and SHPL 4078_030. So while efforts are being made for the non-heat treated fever application, there was also going along in parallel, efforts to introduce a heat-treated version of the product in 1984. And it was the method 4 heat treatment, dry heat treatment, 10 hours at 80 degrees, that was settled upon. That's SHPL 4068_074. So those two processes going along in parallel. By April 1985, Immuno Limited were selling, and I quote, substantial qualities of heat-treated fever, and they wanted further evidence that antiviral treatment does not cause thrombogenicity. That is the document that we looked at earlier in respect of Profromplex. The reference is SHPL 5048_024. So substantial quantities of the heat-treated product being sold. The hearing before the Medicines Commission took place on the 21st of June 1985. By then, FEBA had been available on a named patient basis for 9 years. There is a pharmaceutical examiner's report at SHPL 5078_010 and a medical assessment, which I'll ask the Cernic to put on screen, please, at SHPL 5078_011. This, if we could go down, please, to paragraph 7.1. I don't have a page number, so scroll through. One up, please. This was prepared by Dr. P. Adams, and among the things that is said about heat-treated, the heat treatment is the efficacy of the heat treatment is only demonstrated in relation to the virus ATCCVR68 at 60 degrees centigrade for 10 hours. It would be normal practice to demonstrate the heat treatment method effective against a wider range of viruses, and it is noticed that the revised data sheet says that the company does not claim total viral sterility, but says, quotes, despite the measures taken to reduce the risk, the transmission of viral hepatitis or other viral infections cannot be ruled out. If we could go on to the next page, please. Despite this caution, it is currently thought that if the method of heat treatment is performed as stated in this document, there is little risk of the AIDS implicated virus being transmitted through the administration of the product. In the same report, Dr. Adams notes that there's a lack of controlled data in respect of efficacy, but says that there seems to be a general professional confidence in the product. On the 22nd of August 1985, the DHSS informed Immuno that the Commission agreed to advise the licensing authority that a product license be granted. That is SHPL 40104_010. That license was granted on the 17th of October 1985, SHPL 40109_049. It's clear from the papers that that license is for the dry heated fever. During the time that the licensing process has unfurled, as we know, Immuno have moved towards steam or vapor treated products. And so as with the other products, there then follows a process of seeking an amendment to the license to change it to a steam-treated product. We can see that at SHPL 5050_011. There was discussion at around this time, October 1985, about whether or not to apply straight away for an amendment or whether to wait for a period of time given that the product has only just been licensed through dry heat treatment. And the latter view was one that was expressed by Immuno Limited. That's SHPL 5067_030. By July 1986, it appears that Immuno Limited had either applied for a variation to allow for vapour or steam treatment, or had intimated to the licensing authority that they were going to do so. References SHPL 40102_142, and it was in respect of that the Committee on the Safety of Medicines sent a letter expressing concerns about the product and included the fact that they considered steam treatment to be, as they put it, a misnomer and unacceptable. Again, we'll come back to that. Immuno wrote to doctors on the 21st of July 1986, informing them that henceforth they would only be supplying FIBA steam treated, as Immuno AG were no longer able to produce the dry heated product for the UK. And if we could have that up, please, Sernit. SBTS 40330_115. So I remind you again, sir, of the prohibitions on advertising or making representations about an unlicensed product. 21st of July 1986. Dear Doctor, we wrote to you in January this year informing you that FIBA heat treated was licensed for sale in the United Kingdom. This product is heat treated by a dry heat method for 10 hours at 80 degrees Celsius. Our company in Austria has now developed product-specific steam treatments, and their policy is to change over to steam treatment in all countries. We are no longer able to produce the dry heat product for the UK, as all other countries have already changed over to steam treatment, including the USA, where the product is known as FIBA vapor heated and was licensed in March 1986. The product-specific steam treatment for FIBA is 10 hours at 60 degrees Celsius at an excess pressure of 190 millibars, and a further treatment for 1 hour at 80 degrees Celsius at an excess pressure of 375 millibars. From today's date, we shall only be supplying FIBA steam treated. This can only be issued on a doctor-patient basis until we have amended our current product license. The price for FIBA steam treated will be maintained at 30 pence per unit. We have applied for a variation to our product license, and we will inform you as soon as this has been approved. And that was sent by Peter Coombs, at that time the managing director. The application for an amended license for FIBA vapor heated was submitted at the end of November 1986. That's SHPL 5094_004. On the 12th of August 1987, Immuno met with members of the licensing authority and they discussed the cryobuline, prothromblex and FIBA license applications. We've looked at the documents about that meeting. I won't take you back to them. The reference is MHRA 0033319_040. And Immuno withdrew the FIBA and prothromblex variation applications on the 8th of September 1987. It's SHPL 40106_220. So far as we can tell, Immuno submitted no further documents to the DHSS in relation to FIBA vapor heated during 1988 and 1989. There were letters at this time going between Immuno Limited and Immuno AG expressing concern about the licensing situation, and we've referred to those earlier. Immuno Limited saying, we need to sort out licenses in the UK if we're going to be able to continue selling our products here. In July 1990, Immuno submitted two applications. One was two sets of applications. One was to vary the FIBA product license to change it to vapor heating. And the other was to renew the existing dry heated FIBA product license, even though that product was not being sold in the United Kingdom at that time. The references are SHPL 40316_098 and SHPL 40311_055. Further reference SHPL 40102_119. In the application, it was said that it cannot be precluded with certainty that both known or unknown viruses, which may occur in plasma, are transmitted through factor concentrates, but it also added that clinical safety studies have shown no cases of hepatitis B, NAMB, or HIV transmission in the product. The CSM considered Immuno's variation application in June 1991 and concluded again that they were unable to advise the grant of the variation, this time on grounds of safety and quality. The reference is MHRA 0034575_059. They provided several reasons, including that the rationale for the second vapor heating step, which is 1 hour at 80 degrees, hadn't been provided, that comparative viral inactivation data had not been presented for the dry heat process, and that each plasma donation had not been tested for HIV-2 antibodies. Immuno were informed of the decision on the 19th of July 1991, SHPL 40266_045. Further correspondence took place between Immuno AG and Immuno Limited, SHPL 40106_094, and there was a meeting on the 8th of October 1991 between Immuno and the Medicines Control Agency, SHPL 40106_080. It is fair to say that Immuno AG and Immuno Limited were both more optimistic about the prospects of getting a revised license for FIBA and continued to seek to do so at a time when they had pretty much given up on cryobilin and prothromblex. That is shown by the setting up of a task force to try to obtain the license in December 1991. That's SHPL 40106_073. A new application was submitted on the 26th of March 1992, SHPL 40266_041. And also in 1992, there was an application to renew the license under a EU legislation as well, MHRA 00293998. The Subcommittee on Biologicals assessed Immuno's March 1992 submission in April 1993 and recommended that the variation application be approved. The reference is MHRA 0027402. The subcommittee remarks included that from the evidence presented, it cannot be presumed that the lyophilization process will consistently contribute to the removal of contaminating viruses. That's a technical point which may be of relevance later. So. The Medicines Control Agency informed Immuno on the 4th of May 1993 that the application had been approved. That's SHPL 40266_039, and the variation to the license, allowing it to be steam treated, was granted on the 10th of June 1993, SHPL 40109_001. From our analysis of that chronology, it follows that between the introduction of FEBA in the mid-1970s to the UK market and the granting of a variation licence in June 1993, the only time at which variants of FEBA were provided for use in the UK under a contemporary licence was a 10-month period between October 1985, the date of the first licence, and July 1986, the point at which dry-heated FEBA ceased to be provided. For the rest of this period, approximately 18 years, FEBA variants were supplied on a named patient basis. We do note, however, that the licences were granted in 1985 and 1993 for products which had been previously supplied on a named patient basis. That concludes what I have to say about FEBA and about the licensing process in respect of the Immuno products. I appreciate it has been something of a slog today. There is the next step in the presentation will be to talk about the way in which risk was communicated in the labels and in the leaflets of the various products, including the way that the distinction between European cryobilin and American cryobilin, if it can be put in those terms, was expressed. I'm conscious of the time, sir, and I'm in your hands.
Very well. Thank you very much. 10 o'clock tomorrow. 10 o'clock.